Yeah, the other rumor going around, this is a big one. Kirklin, you can, I'll be interested to ask your opinion because I don't think you've played the first Horizon Zero Dawn, but so right now there's a rumor going around that there's kind of multiples. There's saying that the sequel's going to be gigantic, which, okay, sure, I kind of imagine it would get bigger, but that's kind of what some reports are. There's been reports that they are working on a trilogy, which to me makes sense because it was very successful franchise and people, highly praise it, and it's just kind of to me a new IP. But then there was also this thing that they were working on a game or a possibly feature. At first, it was made they were working on multiplayer. And at first, they were thinking at one point it was pitched as a new game that followed your progression of Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which I think was really weird, which is why the rumor is they canceled it. But yeah, Dylan, what do you think about all this stuff? And also the other thing, same thing as Crash, that there's been rumors again that this is further along than people think, and there's a possibility of it being a PS5 game, or PS5 launch game, which is interesting because I did ask you last week, we were talking about Spider-Man, what if Horizon launched, what predicament that would put you in. So what do you think about this kind of article and info dump, if it is true, about some of these Horizon Dawn rumors? Which, check out our review we did years ago, me and Dylan. Me and him both really enjoyed it, and it's on the feed or YouTube. Oh, if it's not on the feed, you can search on YouTube because those videos never get backpedaled during the feed, so it's somewhere in the ethernets of the internet.
Mm-hmm. I'm intrigued. Yeah, like obviously there's just some stuff in there, like a bigger world. Like I don't know, does Horizon need a bigger world? Like I'll just take any world. I don't really care. Yeah, the co-op is the interesting thing, and I guess what's interesting about it is it makes me wonder where the story is going. Because if you're not playing co-op, like who? Well, I guess even if co-op is a thing, who is your second character? That's the big question for me.
Has to
'Cause
be a new character, right?
yeah, like I have to imagine you still playing as Aloy, but then you're gonna have a second person in there, and so I guess it makes me wonder: is it going to be like a GTA 5 sort of thing where you can like switch between these two characters,
Yeah.
single player? Because that kind of, I think that makes sense, especially if it is a really massive world. I think it could work well where you see these two characters' stories, maybe like I don't know, budding on their own, and then they meet up at some point. But then I guess if you're doing co-op from the start, that maybe doesn't work. I don't know, but I don't know. I think the co-op is just has like interesting story implications for me because I would not have called this. Like we've done predictions
No.
cast for games before, and I don't think like we did one for Spider-Man recently, and this is not one I would have made had we done that for Horizon Dawn, which we should do at some point.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, like I don't know. I don't think that really fits in. Like I think it is very much a slow exploration game. Like I feel like if you split screen that, you're taken away from a lot of the big vistas and beautiful views you get. And I think it could work really well for the combat, just taking down those beasts. If some of them say, I don't know, there's like new strategies you can use with co-op features. Like I think that could be really interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's just weird, man. I would not have called this at all. And I mean, I don't know how reputable this possible source is. I don't know. I don't know whether to believe it or not. But I don't know, something it just seems like a strange direction for me. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, so like I said, the trilogy thing, that makes sense to me. It being bigger, that makes sense to me. I'm kind of like you, where I'm fine with that world again, just a new story or new seasons, whatever it is. I love that game. I actually have to, I think when it gets closer, I do want to do like a full-on replay of it because I just have nothing but great memories of it. I'd love to do that again. And I think you brought up good points about the multiplayer of doing some really cool, unique takedowns. People, if you're a longtime listener, you know me, I'm all about the single player, and that's just the only thing that when I hear that, I just don't want the single player game to get hurt as far as like, oh, we're putting a multiplayer, because I agree with you, this is not something I would have thought at all. If you would have sat me down and said which one's going to get this out of the first IPs, I could have pitched you Last of Us, which it has, but I mean, like, let's say a story main game based multiplayer. I could have pitched you Last of Us. I could even pitch you God of War. Horizon Zero Dawn is not one I would be thinking, and it's just also not one that I know if I want. I have to wait and see, because it felt similar to, it's funny, when we go do the Batman games, they kind of brought that up eventually, and one though where it didn't hurt the game, but I don't think it enhanced it either. And this sounds like it might be a bit more in depth than that, but I don't know. I need to see it. I need to see the trailer. I need to see developers talk about, because on the surface, I go, that could be cool, but if I had a gun in my head, I'd go, no, I'd rather just stay the single player. Because my thing is, we've kind of talked about this a lot with video games, where the sequel a lot of times is the superior one, because they can build off the first game, they can take the critiques, they can change those. So I would have rather than just take that with the first game and make the enhanced second game, opposed to the enhanced second game, but that could be deterred a little bit by adding this huge multiplayer. And I don't know if it's huge, but just a mode. So if it was done well, I would love if there was something like an online thing where you and me, Dylan, could play together and we could take down stuff together. I think that would be tons of fun, but I don't know
Mhm.
exactly what this means because the same thing that you said, the report, who knows, but it's still, even then that, what did you think about that rumor of, if it was true, of them potentially making it its own game at first, but then that kind of, they walked that back, which to me was very odd if that is true.
Yeah, that seems kind of suspicious to me.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like that's something Sony would want from that studio to work on. Like I feel like if Sony really wanted Gorilla to work on some multiplayer thing, that they would say, "Hey, do this Killzone multiplayer
Hmm.
game." Like I feel like you just let Horizon be what it is, but yeah, I don't know. That's why I find all this, like, I'm taking all this with a grain of salt, because it just seems a little off to me. It doesn't seem
Yeah,
like what I got from the first game was setting up for this.
I agree. Kirkland, do you have any interest in jumping in the first one or jumping in the second one if you hear some of these things about multiplayer and whatnot? Or is this kind of a franchise that you think maybe you'd get to one day, but it's not on the immediate future?
Yeah, it's interesting because like when this was announced, I was so intrigued. I've just always loved like very like unique, original, like single player story type games, which this is exactly that, right? It introduced something that's so new that was never really a thing before. I haven't played it. I don't have too much experience with it. I know it's awesome. You guys have raved it a few times here and there, but I definitely will want to jump in this at one point. Not in a rush right now. There's just too many
Mhm.
things to be played.
Yeah.
Is definitely interesting though, just some of the rumors you guys were laying out, like the possible co-op. Again, I haven't played the game, so I don't even know if this would work that well, but I know it's happened a few times in past games where they'll have like a second player that's totally an AI, but it's just like your like companion. You're not with them all the time, but
Yeah.
that they're a character that they're fairly fleshed out. Not as much as the main character, but they are an actual character. It's not just like a mirror version of your character that your buddy can play on just to make it work, right? So like and then so they have that character, and then when you want to play online, your other guy just plays as that character. So I could see them doing something like that if they do want to go the co-op route. Again, I haven't played the game, so I could just be speaking nonsense here, but there are options to make it uh co-op accessible and not so janky where it's just like, okay, you're just playing the exact same character so that you can play with your friend. It actually makes some sense with the story, with the world and stuff. So I don't know, I feel like there's options for them to do that. And I feel like, especially if you make it not so reliant on co-op where you're taking away from the single player experience, because that has happened before in the past. um yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cool thing though, because especially like for you guys, I'm sure it'd be fun to go, even if it's not really doing the story, just doing some free roaming or something like together.
Mhm.
I'm sure you guys would have some fun with that, right? And I'm sure
Oh
other
yeah.
people would too.
Well, one thing I've kind of been thinking about when it comes to Horizon is like, for all of these games, all these PlayStation, like the God of War sequel that's going to come out, Spider-Man. I feel like for those ones, it's much easier to look at it and say, okay, for the sequel, I could see that they're going to improve on this feature, that feature, this feature. For Horizon, I don't think it's as straightforward. Like, I feel like the world was already massive. It had different locations. It's the most beautiful game I've ever played. And I feel like the mechanics and the combat was really good. And they already kind of had, they had the water archetype and beasts that you fight against. They had the air ones. They had tons of different ground ones. So I wonder if this is almost a thing of like, okay, how do we iterate upon this and make it like feel fully new and fresh and tons of new features? And maybe they looked at that and said, maybe we need co-op to be that extra oomph that pushes it to be like, this is not just by the numbers sequel. This is something that deserves to be made. And so maybe that has something to do with it, because I think they just nailed it so much with that first game that, like, where do you go from here? And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe this direction they wanted to take it.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah. And I'm just trying to think if it will be a launch game. To me, if it is a launch game, that is a huge laying it out on the table to come out, because we've always talked about before that lots of these launches with these consoles for all the brands have kind of always been, mediocre to good. Nothing that
Mhm.
really stands out. Nothing that's like, oh, this is one of the best games of this generation, this console. To me, I'm expecting that with Horizon Zero Dawn. I know that's a lot to put on it, but to me, the first game was so good. I'm expecting that of the sequel. So if it leads with that, I think that's a huge kind of step forward, because you get this huge, third person action Sony first party IP right at day one. I don't know if I buy it because I'm saying there's some stuff in these reports that may go, but we have heard, and the other thing that compacted this rumor is because they were hiring right now. It wasn't for game development; it was for something else. I think it was for like AI. I can't remember the exact terminology, but they are. It's something that's definitely it's already in development. So I think that would be huge. And I don't know what development you can do right now with the state of things. That they're still, because I know some companies can slowly work on a game, or some companies can't. So, but if it was a day one launch, I think that would be massive for them. And maybe they know that. Maybe that's why it will be, because we have, even in not just this report, we have heard other reports that's a bit further along than you would expect. So it could be a really cool launch.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Looking good.
Anything else today, gentlemen, before we sign off?
I don't think so.
Nope, not for me.
Nope. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, you can just find us in the, well, Taylor's not here to give his whole search bar business, but you know where you can find us. Let's throw this here. So there we go. So, ladies and
Oh
gentlemen.
no, that's terrifying.
So, ladies and gentlemen, like I said before, go in the description below. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That'd be great. We're almost at 30 or almost at 200. That's the goal. We've had like a stalwart right now. So get those reviews coming if you haven't. Oh man, it's so scary. Like, look at my eyes just coming in there, you know? So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for tuning this review. We got some other stuff popping up this week. We'll have a Patreon perspective. We got, oh God, the last 2 episodes of Clone Wars. Check out our reviews. Those have been really good. And then maybe some other fun announcements on the way. So, thank you very much for tuning in, and hear from us next time. It'll not be boring.
Later.
Ciao for now.